Little synchronicities. Gotta
Good
love them.
morning, everybody. How are you all doing
Morning.
today?
Very good. Well, good morning to you.
Hey.
Good evening
It's
from
so,
me.
it's so
Hey
good to see
Jordan.
you guys.
When,
Yeah,
when,
welcome back.
when's the next Spirit Science video coming out?
Um, if everything goes smoothly, hopefully next Monday.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hi.
And
Hey
and
Aaron.
welcome, Mel. You just
There's one being read right.
Whoa.
Oh,
What's
so
that behind you, Jordan?
behind me,
Behind
this is
you.
a beautiful thing. This is a tapestry in my room.
Is that a mandala?
It is a mandala, actually. Yes. But the meaning of which it's very Celtic. It's like a Celtic knot, but I'm not sure if it has a specific meaning.
Uh,
But I often like to just sort of like gaze into it.
It,
Time.
the
hey.
Druids would use stuff like that, kind of like the Flower of Life mandala, or other mandalas were used, or the Sri Yantra. It's kind of like that, but a feminine version of the Sri Yantra.
Very, very much so. Yeah.
This is my room. I just want to show you guys. This is my oil collection. I have frankincense, myrrh, onycha, galbanum, eucalyptus, and vetiver. And I just got these crystals right here. These crystals. These are jasper crystals.
Nice.
I wish to create an opening. I think today is the I'd like to start today's call just with an opening meditation. And then I want to talk about meditation for a little bit, actually. And that's going to be the focus of today's call is power of meditation. So with that, if everybody, if you have the ability to mute yourself or just, I guess actually I have those controls here. We'll create calming, peace, and quiet. We'll take a deep breath, closing our eyes. And some more deep breaths. Doing a calm sweep over your entire being. The moon in its full state has a very significant impact on the body. So as you breathe and you continue to slow down, feel the heightened subtle energies that are present with you now. Feel the changes that are taking place in the earth as everyone is in a state of stimulus, heightened to the changes of the earth, which all reflect the changes within, and vice versa. The soul comes into being in the equilibrium forces. And so heightened states of awareness and deeper connections to the soul takes place in the harmony and balance between all of the different aspects that move through you. Your earthly five senses, your unity with God, your higher principles, your emotions and your thoughts, your disciplines, your astral self. And so as you breathe, take into account all of these different aspects of yourself. You feel the balance in the center of your chest. your solar light, your radiant glow. And you become a vessel for all of the information and energy of the cosmos to move through you. A gift for all of creation. Not yours to keep or hold on to, but for you to be a vessel for it to move through. Breathe into this now. And when you are complete, bring your hands to center. One, peace, peace, peace. And namaste. There's a great deal of changes taking place in the world right now. As a lot of you probably know, Florida is currently evacuating and preparing for colossal levels of damage. Southern California is on fire, and Texas is underwater. So we've got water, air, and fire, which all kind of combine together on the surface of the earth. So for those who are not directly involved in all of these changes and the intensity that is hitting that part of the earth, we can't forget that we too are connected to it. It's not something separate from us. And so if there's aspects of us that are experiencing this level of intensity externally, then so too are we experiencing these internally. And so there's an inner call for us then to create a motion within ourselves that is reflectant of what's going on, so that we can live in harmony with everybody and everything. And it's very interesting because I'm not muted, am I? No. Okay, cool. There's a second Spirit Studios in there. It's very interesting because, yeah, the full moon is the time when the connection between the ethereal realm, the astral plane, the Sephirot of Yesod, if you watch the latest Spirit Science episode, is the most in connection with Malchut, the physical realm. And so there's more energy, there's more connection, there's more ability to channel these higher energies down into the root. It's sort of like if you think, just on the turning of cycles, it's sort of like when the two, clock hands are at the top, they're like the closest together. It's the easiest to make a jump if you were a tiny person standing on one and you wanted to get to the other one to ride that wave. Kind of a strange analogy, but it works, because then imagine being that tiny guy and the hands move far away. That's like the new moon. Being to jump from here to there. That's why during the new moon, it's more of an astral or a spiritual meditation. You're going within, you're in the darkness, you're going through the void. But when it's the full moon, it's like, now's the time for like grounding changes to be able to really take place in a big way. One of the topics of the new Spirit Science episode, because we're working on a health one too, because we're like, got to finish that series. But on the new Kabbalah episode, one of the things that we talk about is, shoot, I mentioned the health thing, and I lost my train of thought. Aaron, you remember where I was going with that?
I think that the jump, the gap between the two planes being close together during the move, is that it?
Oh, moon. Earth changes. Shoot. Well, that's kind of open. We're going to come back to that if it comes back. Yeah, I mean, all of everything that you said, but I've already said that stuff already. So, either way, yeah, now is the time for, we can like make changes happen, essentially. And the power of meditation, that's it. Let's just go there. I did an article recently that we just haven't published yet. It'll probably come up today, about the Maharishi effect. This is the effect of mass meditations being able to affect consciousness, affect like drop crime rates. Like 1% of a population is able to drop crime rate 20%. And so if that's 1% of a population, you have to consider the effects that that would have if more than 1% of a group was able to do that. And of course, they were measuring it in different scales too. Like 1% of the Earth's population is something like 70 million, 76 million. But 1% of a smaller community or a family is you. And so just by you and your practice of meditating on a daily basis, on a regular basis, you can create profound shifts in the world. And you can affect those around you on a much deeper level than you believe. And you don't even have to like talk to them. You know, sometimes you're like, I just want to help all my friends, but like they're so this or that or whatever that, you know, they don't listen to spirituality conversations or what have you. But just by you meditating, you can create a positive impact in their lives because of the vibrations that you're emanating. So I want to open it up and say, welcome everybody. This is the focus of today's call, and let's talk about it.
I love that that's today's focus.
Just so you talk about the Maharishi effect, and I've too recently published that same topic and how it's a really powerful thing to quote or cite to someone who may be very skeptical. And yeah, I'm grateful that whole experiment had been done in the world, and it's great. Yeah, it's great that you're doing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it really stood out to me as like tremendously significant. You know, if we could organize so many people meditating all together, just like we do, you know, here, but like daily, the effects could be so profound. I mean, like everybody could wake up instantaneously. Like, I mean, if 1% of the population brings the crime rate down 20%, that would mean crime would be eradicated if 5% of the population was to meditate at the same time. And then what would happen if 10% was to meditate? I know that's like big numbers, but again, if we like focus it in, right? If we have like focused groups being able to do this, like the you said Maharishi. I thought it was Maharishi.
Maharishi.
Right, yeah.
Maharishi?
Just
okay. No, it's cool. But like they have like a university for their whole practice, and they were able to get like 1% of the population of Washington, D.C. I mean, this was in like 1993, and they saw the same effect of that taking place, and that was sort of part of that was where it really started to like become known. They've been doing this. There was another one in 2007. And again, it's like every time it's just consistent results. Quite.
I was just doing research because I was inspired to also start writing an article on meditation, actually tailored towards people who use the excuse of I can't meditate, or I've tried meditation but it just doesn't work for me. And one of the things I came across yesterday was HeartMath Institute's Global Coherence Initiative, and they do 3 times a day a global focused meditation where people can join in a virtual room and meditate together. And so I think that's fantastic. But synchronicity again.
That's wonderful. I think I need to start doing it. Like putting like, you know, because I do about 2 hours a day roughly, but like if I was just to time those with the, like that would be an excellent thing. I'll have to look into that. Thank you for sharing.
It'd be a good thing to join up together with other institutions, like you said, Heart Math are doing it, and there's various groups, I think, who are meditating at certain times. If all of those just coordinate, I'm sure that the numbers will go up and that percentage will slowly increase. And who knows what could happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't be hard for us to post events on our event page that are happening at the times of all of these other things and just like start happening.
I had that exact same thought actually, so I'm glad you said that.
I think also the community around us is really important. I think like a lot of my high school friends don't even know how to meditate, so I was thinking about doing a 30-day like meditation challenge for myself. You know, like after 30 days it becomes a habit. So I was thinking of doing it kind of like a live thing, maybe on Instagram, where it's like where I'm mostly connected to my high school friends, and they could join or they could watch afterwards. And maybe after 30 days, I could see a change between some of my friends that could be of interest to actually meditate.
That's cool. That sounds great. And if you have your Instagram account, I'd like to see what's going on there as well. You could post that. I mean, I've been speaking to you guys a bit. I've been running a company since January, and we're actually doing things like this now. We're putting out 5-minute meditations and other inspirations and things. So, I mean, maybe if we all are doing something on the same lines, we could coordinate the time to be the same, and maybe even join those groups together, or do something to that effect, so that, you know, we're linking our groups together to have this, a larger effect.
Brilliant.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that
Why not?
For people who are just starting on meditation and like don't know how and are like, I can't, you know, or like, because I actually, since like even making like the meditation episode of Spirit Science back in 2011, there were people who were like, I can't start, I can't calm my mind, right? And like that's like this kind of recurring problem. So I think that like it's important too to like kind of describe the different modalities and practices of meditation that we can all potentially do, right? Because it's not just like the free flow of sitting there and being like, I'm just going to like quiet my mind and go into meditation, but also like there's guided meditations that you can listen to on audio. There's structured meditations like the Merkaba effect, like Trimbo's Merkaba, where it's very specifically like 17 breaths of going through this building the tetrahedrons around yourself. And then there's also like sequence meditations where it's like every single day you take like 10 minutes and just think about like sit in meditation and think about, for example, like a chakra, like the first day is the root, second day sacral, so plexus part, like every day, so that you're kind of compounding this like meditation over time. And then you can kind of start to practice other ones too and incorporate other disciplines into your life. Like one of the ones that we did was the 21 Masks of the Ego, which you can also read about on the Spiritside Chats. But also, like, you can do the Kabbalah, the 22 pathways, or the 10 Sefirot. And again, yeah, it's just like a compounding one. I'm really quite taken with that one lately. But I think with that understanding, it makes it easier for getting involved, because otherwise it probably just seems like such a big topic. And how do I get to having a calm mind right off the bat? But that's not really the goal. Right?
Yeah, and that's it. People have different stages. They start from different angles. They might want to do it for relaxation. Some do it to just feel something. They've been really depressed or something like that. So yeah, having one technique can be hard to grasp for some people, very easy for other people. So I think that's great to have a lot of different people contributing their own techniques or explanations to really have a greater reach and comprehension.
Yeah, very much so. I've had lots of experiences myself too, where people would have come and said that they're daunted by the concept of meditation as a practice. But the reality from my experience is that in and of itself is the the path that you're on. And I'm hearing some echo from you, Jordan. Thank you. But yeah, so when we realize within ourselves that we're viewing this thing as being difficult or by being hard or by being some unobtainable goal that we're trying to reach, we almost make it more difficult to obtain. So part of one of the practices when I talk to people is just allowing them to be okay with where they are right now. If your mind is going crazy, your meditation might very well just be sitting there and observing your thoughts. So it's like a very common practice to just allow people to you unmuted. Yeah, okay. You want to say something, Jordan?
Oh no, I turned my volume down though so that there wouldn't be an echo.
There still was.
What does meditation even do?
That is an excellent question. Does anybody else want to take it?
I'd love to, yeah.
Go for it.
Go for it, Josh. Go.
We'll probably have multiple answers on this one.
I was going to say there are hundreds, but just the very first thing that it does is get you in touch with yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree. What else does it do? Does it help you to relieve stress?
Meditation can be used, yes, like literally meditation can be used for, except maybe like, no, yeah, I could see it being beneficial. I was going to say except like running a marathon, but then like, even then I could see it being very helpful because meditation is the practice of like focusing your inner body in any capacity, including like the defocusing, right? Like you can go into thoughts, into emotions, into spirit, into your body, or out. But in doing so, you're doing the practice of essentially expanding your consciousness and even contracting your consciousness to refine this inner, your inner nature to become more than you were before. And this can apply to every aspect of your life and make life better. It can, in every way, it can facilitate healing. It can facilitate deeper understanding. It can facilitate openness with others, opening up to trust, opening up to love, and like learning more about the world. And recognizing that there's more to life than these 5 physical senses.
I think that. Go ahead, Aaron.
No, go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say that every time I close my eyes and I go into meditation, it's like a mirror. I see myself. I'm in a space where I'm only with myself. And I do get to talk to myself and be in a space where I can really try to understand deeper truths within me. And that is something that like I feel like I'm always clouded on the go or running here, running there. And when I take a moment to myself I thank myself after.
Yeah, well said. If I were to answer the question of like, what does meditation do for you, or like, what is the general outcome or the benefit of it? I mean, from a physical scientific perspective, the HeartMath Institute has looked at what our heart rate does, just specifically when we start paying attention to our breath, when we start paying attention to our thoughts, when we start going internal and observing ourselves from a reflectionary sort of standpoint. Like, it affects our physiology. It allows you to relax more and create a more harmonious state. If you were physically feeling stressed or anxious, taking a couple of breaths will immediately like calm your entire system down. So like from a physical standpoint, it is very healthy to be practicing at that level. But then to take it further, the practice of going internally and being with yourself and breathing and being honest and true, you can start to pick out those little things that you might have been hiding in your subconscious, or well, again, calling the 21 masks of the ego, the parts of you that you don't maybe want to look at that are preventing you from being that truer, fuller self that you really are, or from manifesting yourself into the world that you want to live in. So by taking the little breaks to observe these things, it's like that expression, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. Meditation then is the practice of slowing down and saying, what have my results been? What have my actions been? How are these things correlated to each other? And how can I actually make a difference now? And the meditation practice is a little break of time that you can use to actually learn those things for yourself. And then you can start to get more advanced with it, where if you're doing practices like Kujian, where they have very specific mantras, mandalas, mudras, dharmas, all of these things happening simultaneously, you can start to channel that energy through your body and through your field to allow you to affect change on just a greater level than what does sitting here do for me. It's more of a, what does the divine energy of channeling through me have to teach me in this moment? Or what is the greater output that I'm supposed to be doing here? Your questions sort of change and grow and evolve as they get here. But yeah.
Has anyone ever seen Dynamo Jack on YouTube?
I have, yes.
Yeah,
He's the guy who like lit the newspaper on fire.
Yeah, by meditating. He said he meditated every day, and somehow he can like burn paper with his bare hands. So
there's other people doing things like that as well.
Is that meditation or is that fake?
That's yang meditation.
That is such a focused level of mind that now you are able to like move and manipulate matter through your being. So it is meditation, but it's very advanced, and it's not something that we're directly focusing on learning in this moment, because it's sort of like trying to jump from 1 to 100, and most of that are like still compared to that, like we're still learning and we're still growing.
Plus,
but
like
that's
he
something
says in that video, he says it's yang meditation. That's when you focus the inner energies and control them to manipulate the outside world. But he does also say in that video, the real jewel of meditation is the inwards meditation, and I think most people will come to the same conclusion when you look inwards, you find these worlds and realms of thought and experience that are just, totally trump being able to set something on fire or moving a glass across the table. I mean, it's still like, wow, great, but going inwards and exploring the depths of your soul is so much more immersive, I feel.
I don't know if you guys remember a couple of chats back, I was taking sacred geometry in class, and for my final project, since I'm a film major, I decided to create what I would call a visual meditation using sacred geometry within the frame, so that it's such a visual, pleasing visual, that as you are looking at it and you are following this meditation, it's more of like a starting meditation if someone wants to begin to get into this type of feel. You can follow along by looking at it if you have a hard time closing your eyes. But then eventually you can close your eyes. It's very short. You guys definitely inspired me because we do such short meditations, yet they do get to ground you. I will also be releasing that soon, but I think you guys will like it. It's more like cinematic rather than just sounds on YouTube,
You'd love to watch it.
Yeah, thanks. I've just added you on Instagram as well, Karen. So I'll look for that stuff coming up if you're going to post it on there.
I also want to open up the space to hear from Shell, or we have Jerper and Philip, and also our lovely friend Sumo Gayan. If you guys have anything to add here, we haven't heard much.
What's up, guys? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sweet. Well, I'm first of all just super glad to be here with everybody. It's a privilege to get to share some space with you, Jordan, and the crew that you've assembled here. Yeah, I don't know. Should I just go ahead and
take it away? You have the mic.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I stumbled upon spirit science when I think I was 17. I was my senior year of high school. I was actually in school suspension for skipping school, and I was basically supposed to be doing schoolwork, and instead I was kind of roaming the web, searching all kinds of really cool things. And I actually remember Googling scientific evidence for the spirit. And then I found one of your videos. So that's kind of how I got connected to everything that you've been doing. And it just totally blew my mind. Definitely resonated with me on a lot of different levels. Then I basically also, around that same time period, got into the work of Dr. Greer and everything that he was doing. And so I kind of had super heavy, dense, very serious material that he was putting out, and then really lighthearted, friendly, loving material which you were putting out. So it's kind of and I've been kind of walking a fine line between those two worlds ever since. Just trying to figure out how we can, disclose a lot of these issues in the most safe and responsible way, I guess. And you're championing that totally. So, yeah, it's kind of been a journey ever since around that time. It was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I guess. So, yeah, I'm just super glad to be connected with you guys, and it's a rekindling of a lost brotherhood or something like that.
I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, good to have you here, Philip. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
I want to invite. I'm sorry, I don't know your name other than it says Derper. But if you got a mic there, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, sorry, that's just my email, so I put that on there. Well, man, where do I start? Well, the first, actually, what got me into this was actually, your series on, what was it, human history. And I was just looking on YouTube because I was really into history, and I just stumbled on, kind of what he was saying. I kind of just stumbled across it, and it kind of set me on my trail to, everything I've learned so far. And so basically, what you guys were talking about earlier, I had a friend, basically, that was my best friend for, all the way from when I was in, first grade all the way to now. And it turns out, like 3 months ago, that he was into the same thing, right? And he had been meditating and stuff like that. And I thought that was incredibly ironic because my best friend was into the same thing I was. And, but anyways.
Synchronicity.
I got it on the track, right? And, well, oh man. So basically what I'm trying to say here is, it's crazy that, more people around us, more and more people every day are starting to become, know more about meditating and stuff like that every day, and it's crazy how fast it's spreading and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's like Terence McKenna said, everything is becoming more compacted and crushed together. Information, people connecting across the world, all spiraling, coming closer. Everything's becoming faster and quicker to access, and it's all starting to heat up.
Almost like we're being pulled towards it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Another good analogy.
First, I also just want to say thank you, brother, for sharing. I forget, did you mention your name?
Oh, sorry, my name's Lucas Battles, so
Lucas.
that's my name.
Hi, Lucas.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And yeah, as far as like us kind of coming together, I remember one time a friend of mine told me that it's kind of like a dark age, but except that there's just so much light happening like right now. Like people are unaware, but it's like, you know, through the internet, through the communication, the advancements of communication, there's so much information that it's blinding. And so like people don't know what to trust. They don't know what to believe. You know, that's why we've got like, if you want to confirm something, just look on the internet and there will be someone confirming your belief. It doesn't matter what it is, including like, you know, smoking cures cancer or whatever it is, you can find evidence for it. And like, there's just all of this information and we're just like acclimating to it as like a species, being like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to invite Eddie to say something, because man, you had such wonderful insight last time. We haven't heard from you at all today.
Oh, I appreciate that. I just wanted to hear what the room has to say and what everybody is basically, you know, bringing to the table today. You know, there's always a nice synthesis that happens when so many different varying biological technologies get together and start to share like this. So I love where we were going in the original sort of trend of thought when, you know, speaking about the field that is created through meditation. Now, meditation would basically be the baseline state of self-awareness, essentially, being able to use that as the ground that we walk on to introduce all the other states, basically like Aaron was talking about, and I believe, who's this, Anthony was speaking to here, and, you know, we and obviously yourself, we have the ability then to introduce from that state of calm more capacity. So let's just say, for instance, let's use the emotional body as a representation of where we want to be. If in meditation we decide to go through the phase of love, well, holding that resonance is what Rupert Sheldrake alludes to when he speaks of morphogenic fields. We seed into those morphogenic fields so much of the capacity for the next person to be able to get to that place. He basically, I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with Rupert Sheldrake and his work, but it's really quite profound in that the field that he calls these morphogenic fields is a biodynamic and constantly upgrading system that is listening to the feedback that we're all giving it. And if the feedback that we're giving it is problem solving, let's say, you know, solving poverty or solving violence or solving some of these other unfortunate parameters that we have on the planet right now. Well, if we switch that over and we start to phrase that in the emotionally positive state, like introducing wealth and introducing consciousness in a very high place, we can then allow the people to seed that sensation. So we are resonant things. We're just these resonant creatures, and that resonance is what creates that profundity that is happening when we see. Gray Braden introduced, I believe, in his book Lost Mode of Prayer, this notion that it's only the square root of 1% of any given population that actually can affect change. So if you and this is through resonant prayer. So it's beyond meditation. Meditation is almost, it's kind of like the feminine to the masculine of concentration. If meditation is, so the meditation is the feminine, the concentration is the masculine. Well, that central pivot that both create, that's that place. That's that really beautiful spot where if we're phrasing both the meditation and the concentration in the positive, if we're moving that into the positive direction, then we have the ability to affect those around us. Much like saying, you know, I'll never forget you or I'll always remember you. They mean very similar things, but the energy within them is very different. And so it's very important to reflect that language back to the emotional state so that we can resonate that out into the field. That's where the power comes from, because the people that were doing these great healing works and while affecting that, you know, 20% decrease in crime rate, they had many years of meditative capacity and experience. These are people that brought to the table their already created momentum in that state. So to bring someone in who's never meditated before or has never really used the focused intention of resonance, it's not going to have the same effect. However, it will have some effect. So it's certainly, please do it no matter what. Go out and put your feet on the ground and feel just feel beautiful for a moment. That's changing the world because it's changing yourself. However, those of us that have practiced the art of resonance, like Jordan, you're saying that you go out 2 hours a day and you focus and you do what you do in your practice. That's very powerful. When you introduce mantras, your whole body starts to resonate. When you introduce some of these different types of platforms of emotional stability, that resonates throughout the field as well. So that's where those really profound shifts occur, is when, and remember, the square root of 1% of any given population, that's like what, 6,000 people globally? That's not very many people. And if we're all, and how many people are on this call right now, 8 or 10 people, we're 10 of 6,000. That's the square root of 1% of 6,000. So we can help to resonate up to that 6,000 percentile, right? So as long as everyone just needs to get to a place where we're moving in that direction, taking that opportunity to place ourselves in the right motions. That's pretty much, I just wanted to, I guess, in corralling the information that came through us all already, that's, I suppose, what I wanted to add to that. If I guess last would be Daniel Winter's work. If you want to start to think about the physics of the heart, Heart Math Institute gets a lot of their science from Daniel Winter. So it's a really profound shift in awareness. He is probably one of the most interesting characters. His website is very difficult to navigate. His information is tremendously challenging to negotiate, but once you can get a little bit of a feel of the physics of the heart, it's really, really stunning. Negotropic phase conjugation is basically what he calls it, and it's a little bit beyond, I guess, the scope, but if you really wanted to get into the physics of the heart, it's really quite something. So that's that. Back to the room.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
articulate.
Yeah. It's a very good
I
summary
really
of
like
everything.
I like the fact that you brought up Rupert Sheldrake. This idea of morphic resonance is like super profound, and I like the words that he uses, like collective memory, that we all draw upon. So it's like there's this sort of collective unconscious that
It's behavioral memory. It's collective behavioral memory. That has to be the notion there. If we remember that it's the behavioral notions that are remembered, we actually evolve based on behaviors. He basically suggests that the evolution isn't a static thing. It wasn't the Big Bang and here's all our archetypes and principles, is that we have learned through behavior certain specific ways of living. So it's evolution is a behavioral status. We evolve based on the behaviors of the time, and we learn based on those parameters. So we have the ability of somebody else's behaviors, like for instance, like he suggests in some of the studies, people that take crossword puzzles in the morning, it's much more difficult for them to solve those puzzles than the people that take those same crossword puzzles in the evening. They are, because people have already seeded the behavioral wisdom into the collective unconscious. Those crossword puzzles are thus then easier to solve in the evening, once a group and a block of people have solved them. He uses rats and all sorts of other studies, but that's the basic suggestion, is that it's behavioral consciousness that is being seeded there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also brought up like solving crime and solving poverty, and I think what we're really touching at here is the idea that we all kind of share like an unconscious mind, right? And so for me, it's like the main issue that humanity struggles with is basically this concept of separation, which is supposedly an illusion, right? Like it's basically, and Rupert Sheldrake and so many others are doing work to like really bring that to the forefront of science. You're thinking about like poverty and crime, like for me, thinking that we're all one and trying to figure out how that actually works. For me, it's like the golden rule is kind of like the key towards achieving those key issues. You don't commit a crime against somebody when you know that you are them, right? Or it's just like everything changes when you know that we all share this thing called life, this one entity experiencing itself
Exactly, and
many
that
different
alone is a
perspectives.
basis for starting meditation, if I've ever heard one. You know,
Right, yeah, for sure.
getting in touch with yourself can mean relating to someone or just having an emotional connection with other people. That's immediately going to stop, you know, a lot of bad things or bad habits in one's own life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good point.
Start creating good ones, yeah. Michelle, I'd love to hear from you.
I don't know. Everyone else said everything so eloquently. I don't know that I could add much to it. Although I did, Eddie, I did like your point about concentration being masculine and meditation being feminine. At that apex is the sort of what they're trying to create, that pivot point. And in some of the more physical meditations, like I know like running can be a meditation for people, or just simply sweeping the floor can be a meditation for people, or chopping wood. In that sort of active meditative state, it's almost as if it connects that concentration and that meditation into that single point at the same time, and moves to sort of to marry the two. And I seem to, when I do those types of meditations, those tend to be my deepest, most present meditations. Now, I also have incredibly intense, deep meditations that are separate entirely from physical and just sitting, meditating, exploring my own inner world. But the most present ones would be those active meditations that marry that concentration and meditation into that one point.
That one point is called contemplation. Because we have concentration and meditation, and then the marriage of the two is contemplation. It is the best of both worlds, but it does not have the limitations of either. So it's basically the child of the two.
That's really fascinating.
You also used
I really like that.
Resonant prayer.
What is contemplation though?
Contemplation would be the union then of the meditation and the concentration.
So let's just say that concentration is single pointed focus. We have something that we're going to focus on, and so that's it. We say, I'm not going to take any of the information from the subtle realms, or I'm not going to take any information from really anywhere. I'm going to unilaterally focus on this particular topic, and I'm going to get through it no matter what. That is the masculine, it's just laser focus. That meditative aspect is I'm going to allow all things to pass. I'm going to allow all things to experience, and I'm just going to simply observe them as they come about. So we can tap into the subtler realms, we can tap into some of the more subtle features of reality. Now, those are both very powerful things. But when we marry the two together and we get contemplation, we're using the ability to allow the entirety of the universe to flow through us, while at the same time using pointed consciousness. So we have the ability to focus on specific topics while allowing the universal flow to continually manifest through us. So it's that marriage of both worlds, and it does not have the limitations of either. So when you ask what is contemplation, it's the way that we use the full faculties of the masculine plus the feminine to create the child and live through that child state. That's essentially.
Is that like masculine, male, female, and child?
Right.
Yeah.
Metaphorically, of course.
Okay. Thank you.
Was there another question? Sorry. Resonant prayer. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would also add that it may be helpful to understand the limitations of each, to understand the expansiveness. Sometimes it's helpful to hear what those two sides limit. So for instance, the laser focus, the concentration can limit the perspective. It can limit your viewpoint, and it can cause elements to be ignored or missed. Yeah.
Ignoring them. And you can burn out.
Yeah. And then meditation can be quite the opposite. It can be you're looking at everything that you almost lose sight sometimes of the individual and of that focus, of that potential focus on an individual thing. It's sort of like, you get this I am all kind of mindset. We are all, I am we. and you lose the singularity piece. And so by marrying the two, you don't have either of those problems.
Exactly.
Very well said.
In a world of duality, pure evil and pure good together will have to join forces to make something better.
You are that better thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. Well,
we're
on
all
one level,
honest
it's
with
always a
ourselves.
fractal expansion, isn't it? It's an infinite.
Well, if you ask yourself something like, say, you know, would I be capable of the most evil things in this world? And those of us that are truly honest and truly lucid with ourselves, we are capable of those things. Under those types of conditions, we would be. Are
We're
we
capable of all things. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's essentially what it is. So we are all the marriage of both the duality. That's what unity is. It's that holding of the pendulum as it sways. We are holding the pendulum as opposed to being the one that's swaying.
Yeah, you are the choice.
Yeah. And I would also add that in meditation, there is no, in that essence of meditation, there is the concepts of good and bad they don't really mean anything. If you're being honest with yourself, if you're being true to yourself, if you're being in that meditation, in that depth, you see all potentials and all possibilities, all of the good and all of the bad that could be possible. And it's not about labeling those things as good or bad. It's simply about acknowledging them as there and not about judging them in that way, I think, or that's part of it.
Yeah, of course. We weigh lots of things up as good or bad. I mean, in one person's perspective, you can even see death as a good thing. You know, if people lived forever, then we would not have such a sense of loss. And you could factor in many other different things and put them all in different lights. You can see good things as bad things as good things. So ultimately, it's your own perception and angle which makes the difference. Which hence why I highlighted choice. Choice is the factor that regulates whether we act on these decisions, on these good or evil thoughts or things. Choice is what facilitates growth. It can also limit.
I've had it expressed to me too that this world is essentially a training grounds for us to experience the potential of there is infinite possibilities. What are you focusing on? What are you creating? How are you channeling that energy? And so because we are in a world right now that is malleable by our thoughts or intentions or vibrations, but it's not quite as instantaneous as it is in the higher dimensions. I believe that one of the reasons why we're here is specifically because of that. Because we do often have thoughts that might not be in our highest alignment. That's just part of our learning and growing experience. If that happened and manifested instantly, it might be kind of catastrophic for our planet. So it's somewhat a gift that we've been given a reality here where we get to see the effects of our actions, the effects of our thoughts and of our meditations, but it's sort of over a slightly longer period of time than just that instantaneous creation that you'd experience in the higher dimensions. But as a species, I believe that we're getting there, and that energy is being pulled down and things are speeding up. They are happening faster. Your karma, per se, for me personally, I notice if I'm a little bit off, I'll stub my toe and I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I got it, got the message. But it's definitely happening faster now, and so it's just really awesome to see the potential. With this whole good and bad type of a paradigm, it's every action has an equal and opposite reaction. What do you want to create? Removing the labels of good and bad. It's just do you enjoy it? Are you uplifted by it? Is the totality of the experience really bringing you the level of completion that you thought you wanted and needed? And so by taking the time to really reflect on these things, where you just closer and closer defy our actions, our thoughts, is if you were originally going down one road and realize that it wasn't bringing you happiness, you take that reflection, you change your path, your actions, and you'll start getting different results.
In the Kabbalah, they talk like the teachings in general describe evil as being like there's two types of evil, and but evil in essence is just energy that's moving opposite or counter to the natural flow. You know? So if the natural flow is like this, and like let's say one Sephiroth is like pulling away and kind of going over, you know, like moving in the wrong direction, then like with everything. And that would be considered evil. But they would say that there's two kinds of evil. One is positive evil and one is negative evil. Positive evil would be the purposeful moving against the natural flow. So in a societal sense, you could think of it like murder or doing evil deeds, stealing, any of the what would be considered like the the deadly sins, or like the 10 Commandments if you're going against them, sort of like killing people or hurting people or doing something purposefully bad or harmful to others, rather, because that's like outside of the natural flow of the awareness that we're all one. But a negative evil is sort of like a double negative, or double like it kind of cancels itself out, because it's a fundamental evil in order for society to actually advance. And what they would describe that to be would be, again, going to like a societal example, is like if you have an established, let's say a religion or a established teaching or principle, or let's go with a religion, right? And like these are the way that they do things. But then like you've got the youth who are coming up, who are like reformers, have that kind of youthful need to change things. This is really boring, everything, that kind of energy. To the adults, or to the to the establishment of the religion or conservative mindset, that youth is quote unquote evil because it's counter to their culture. But for the youth, that establishment is counter to their free spirit. And it's like in the duality of the two that, they have to find a harmony and balance. And, we always get those waves, but as Aaron said too, it's just moving closer and closer to 5 where they're resonating together. And so that would be a negative evil coming back into alignment, as opposed to, positive evil, which is like, I'm going to go and burn that building. Energy, whatever. And so one of the final things, though, the part of evil, in the Kabbalah is really that when the way to eradicate evil, and this is where the contemplation and meditation, concentration, all of these, and like affecting the resonant fields really comes in, is that you don't destroy evil. You don't cut off its head and burn it or anything like that. You absorb it and integrate it and harmonize with it and create it to be, return it to the natural flow. And sometimes this does take some deconstruction in order to recreate it. You think fire. If you wanted to turn wood into soil, you're going to have to burn it. And there's some destruction there. But you're still integrating it, the ingredients, and just transmuting it and changing them in order to bring them back into a different state, rather. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just want to add, this is a fun thing, is that if you look at the word evil, or if you look at the word love, rather, and you just flip it, love backwards actually spells evil with an O, but it's evil. And interestingly, like that's like the first part of the word evolution. And so really without this countercurrent of energy, this countercurrent flow, there would be no reason to evolve, because everything would be perfect and in perfect unity. It's only when we have this dual state of tension that compels us to create something new. And so when you have love, then you get evil, and that produces evolution, and then we move into something new, and then the cycle repeats.
That's something
is that why people don't love like God? Because God is love and it's spelled evil backwards.
Maybe a little out there, but let's say that we all had a group meditation and we all were to meditate on, for example, Hurricane Irma, and we were to actually be with her, be her, and feel her, and kind of like in terms of like be one with like Earth, and try to calm her down a little bit, and then if it were to hit Florida or all these islands, to visualize people being safe in their homes and letting the storm pass through, and and all like these positive outcomes turn all these negative timelines, maybe a little bit visualizing more positive outcomes coming from this as a whole. Like if we do that as a group, do you think that it would, do you guys think that it could actually affect a little bit the hurricane?
Well,
Definitely
I
think so.
do.
I absolutely
agree.
can.
But one of the things I want to just say, though, is everything happens perfectly for a reason. I'm in a firm sort of state that the hurricane would not exist if it was not perfectly supposed to be there. So we'll say like some of maybe potentially the destruction of Florida or the East Coast or what's happening in Texas or California, regardless. Those people maybe aren't supposed to be living there anymore. Maybe this is the perfect opportunity for them to move to a new location, start a new life, and not be attached to, I have to have my home exactly where it is, and those types of physical limitations. So I would just view like my meditation in these types of events would be, may the people who are going through these experiences really be able to see that nugget of truth that is meant there for them so that they can harmoniously change with the ever-changing world. The only constant is change. So to be able to have this new energy coming into this area and say, what's the lesson for me to learn from this? And if that is to move, or if that is to take a different action, or whatever that may be, like to allow them to see, like, and to find their own answer to the question, how is this perfect?
And exactly, just like what you said before, Aaron, about, you know, stubbing your toe and learning a lesson or realizing there's a lesson there. You know, it's obviously a much more, you know, a bigger event and a greater toll, but en masse, for mass consciousness of this planet, a hurricane or a volcano eruption could be that metaphorical stubbing of the toe that gets a lot of people to wake up and realize that they need to make a change in their life, you know. And that might not happen for a few years. It could be instantaneous, could not be. But you know, I believe that as a species, there's a lot to learn, and we have our completed consciousness, so to speak, spread amongst the planet. You know, there's things that, you know, I've personally seen around the world, in Asia and in all other countries, ways of thinking that if we just had here, and if they just had, you know, our Western thinking over in the East, would make everything so much more harmonious. And so, you know, I think, for example, when you have people going homeless, people having a lot of problems with their living situation and survival, like as what's happening right now in America in a few different places, makes you realize the necessities of life and just what you're capable of in survival instincts and things like that, and realizing that you don't need all this crap to live. I say crap, but you know, and yeah, I just think, just to reiterate what you were saying there, that, you know, it's a way to learn a lesson. It's a way to help people grow, even though it's a blessing in disguise.
Even understanding that we are all conscious, different versions of consciousness. We're all different versions of consciousness learning from each other. Then we are those people in Florida. We are those people in the Middle East. And even if I was saying, if we were like, you know, just during the meditation or doing a prayer session, putting yourself in any person's shoes that might exist, because we are consciousness, and giving them a little push to maybe move out of Florida, or giving them a little push to give love instead of hate, just that one time.
Yeah. Well, let's make a plan to do that then, to give some goodwill and intention to those people suffering right now, wherever they may be.
In our outro meditation, I think for sure we should.
So, can I tell?
Welcome, Drea.
I switched places with
Hi, Drea.
Hello.
I had my eyes closed. I actually, funny that you say that. I had my eyes closed. You came into my mind. I opened my eyes, and there you were. That is hilarious.
What's your name? What's her name?
Sorry.
What is your Ria?
Ria, remember you met me last
Oh, okay.
time?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that means Earth.
Right, yeah, we talked about that last time.
Anthony means praiseworthy. And-
As we were talking about this, her
Yeah,
really quick,
Chili means chalk. Karen means pure. Philip means lover of horses. Aaron means exalted. Edward means guardian. Jordan means descending. And what's your name, Stanley?
Gosh, wow.
Did you just ask a question, Nicholas?
Joshua.
Oh, Joshua. Okay, Joshua means salvation. God is salvation.
My actual name is Michelle, not just Shell.
Oh, okay. Michelle means who is like God. The archangel. It's related to Michael, the archangel's name.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was wondering, what's the meaning of life and the universe?
And everything. 42.
42.
Did anybody?
No, then we're going to get back into this duality pillars thing.
Did anybody hear that? Apparently, there's this theory that when he chose 42 as the answer, that he was a computer nerd, and it represents the in the ASCII alphabet. It represents the asterisk, which in coding is used to stand for anything or whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
That's hilarious.
Actually, I actually had thought about this question. What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything in a roundabout way yesterday. I was talking with some friends. And I think the answer has something to do with we are universal conscious spirit. You could call it God, universe, source, whatever, goddess, whatever your chosen thing is. It is that experiencing itself from multiple different perspectives to learn, to grow, to expand, and understand. It's not a complete thought, informed thought yet, but that's
just like Carl Sagan said, we are a way for the universe to experience itself.
Yeah.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the answer to that, what is the meaning of life would have to be a question. If we know anything about life, that things are infinite and ongoing and constantly changing. So I think that the answer to that question would have to be another question, which then would facilitate another answer and another question and so on.
All right. Here's another question. What's the opposite of nothing?
Everything.
Everything? Just
everything is nothing. Nothing. If you had everything all together, it would all be the same, all one, and you'd have nothing outside of that. So it would be nothing. All the space is nothing.
No, I mean nothing as
everything.
No space, no laws, no matter. It's complete nothing.
Like the neutrino universe.
No, not even neutrinos, just pure nothing. Just like a point of no dimensional point of nothing.
Okay, then what's outside of that point of nothing?
Isn't that technically impossible to have a point of nothing?
Where did the universe come from? Like, did it just exist forever, or did it have to come from somewhere? Like, the Big Bang had to come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of philosophers that you should read on, starting from metaphysics philosophers. I think you like that, Nicholas. I think one of them, I didn't memorize their names, but one of them said that there's no such thing as nothing because nothing means no thing, and there is no such thing as no thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's just a concept.
Well, what I learned from studying like metaphysics is that how reality comes from nothing is it creates itself by constructing what it is and filtering what it's not. So what it is, like all the particles, the opposite of those particles are filtered out. All the particles themselves are constructed. So the opposite of what the universe is disappears, while at the same time what the universe is constructed and appears. And that's
so
how
it would appear to come out of nowhere.
What?
So in that description you've just provided, meaning that the appearance of the universe would seemingly come from nowhere.
Exactly, yeah. from the Big Bang and from nothing.
You might also relate that to how you came into being, and your actually, and you could meditate on this, or meditate, concentrate together on this, of like what happened when you were conceived, specifically, like going. I mean, most of us, that's not something that you can like remember, but you also can like tap into the experience of it, and you have to think about like, where does that soul come from, right? You've got an ingredient from your mother, an ingredient from your father, and in like the union of those opposites merging together, there is that quintessence, that je ne sais quoi, that comes into being in that sphere, which is really the the union of those ingredients. But there's it's more than just the physical biology to it. There's something more that comes through it that is the life element. The what ancient Greeks would call like the ether, the fifth element, or what have you, right? So if you can focus on that experience and think about what that, I mean, really embody, like what would that be like? Maybe you can relate that to the birth of the universe, and also consider that the universe being born is actually still a very small fraction of what actually exists, right? Because everything in what we call the universe is still very visible. There's lots of light, there's lots of exploding stars, and I mean, there's lots of dark voidness too, but there's still tons of waves moving between them, so it's very full. And when you look at a lot of these ancient teachings and practices, you find that they're really saying, and actually this is that part that I forgot earlier, is that everything that's physically manifested, everything that we think is real is not causal, is the outward reflection of the invisible causal forces of reality. And of course, because it's all in my mind right now, in Kabbalah, you really, you go to the top, and if you've seen that video, like you've got kept there at the top, which is like kind of that supreme Godhead of infinite power, but nothing manifested. And then all, like the Big Bang would be like, energy moving through that. But that's not even the top, because there's 3 realms above Keter called Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or. And Ein Sof Or is the limitless light, which is above Keter. So it's almost describing like the bridge there is like this like infinite field of light that has no end, is so radiant that you can't even comprehend it. And that's sort of the thing, is like you can't comprehend it, and so trying to logically, rationally say, well, this is how everything came into being. There's a level after which where it's like you can't really, your mind is not equipped to be able to handle, but a fraction.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Accessible amount of understanding of what it actually is.
Is not understanding that a good thing or a bad thing?
Both.
Well, that's again
coming back to that duality problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every step thou takes infinitely extends the journey.
Right. I mean, you can see it as good, or you can see it as bad. Ultimately, it just is, and that's sort of the beauty of it. But then again, like the way that they are trying to describe it is that beyond Ein Sof Or is Ein Sof, which is just the infinite boundless. So now it's like, the first one was the infinite light, boundless light, but now it's just infinite boundless what? I don't know, it just is. and then again, one level beyond that is just Ein. It's nothing. It's the vacuum of spirit, but not even that. It's like if you know Taoism, the written Tao, the spoken Tao is not the true Tao, and that's what this is. You cannot put words on it. You cannot put language or drawing or anything on it. Really, anything beyond Keter. Like it's just not possible.
I think there's a good quote. Sorry, you're still going.
Oh, that was pretty much it. Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, what you're saying just reminded me. There's this quote I learned a long time ago, and it just keeps coming back in more and more unfolding meaning. Similar to what we're saying about things being out of grasp or not comprehensible, yet you still have to describe them to get an idea of what it is. And I think Bruce Lee said it's like a finger pointing to the moon. Don't look at the finger, or you'll miss all that heavenly glory. Yeah, you need to point to the moon to show where it is.
Exactly. Exactly. And even then you're not walking or moving in that moment.
People get caught up on the finger. What's this finger? What is this? This is like the divine thing, you know? No, I'm pointing to the moon. It's over there.
Hey, I want to point a finger. Can I point a finger? All right. I would like to point a finger back at Drea. She was going to say something a second ago, and we kind of bunny trailed off. So
Yeah,
I really want to
about
come
the
back to
hurricane.
that.
Yeah, I was really hoping
That's
for
it, yeah.
the introduction there. There she is. Thank you.
I'm happy you said that. I've been waiting. We'll do that. It's really nice when you've got the thing
I
behind.
know. I mean, I could actually
Get in here. All right, I'll stay here this time.
Yeah, you guys are so nice. They were like, oh, you get to say your thing. And the energy had shifted to the next topic, so I wasn't going to be like, wait, I need to say my thing. Just kept thinking.
You were speaking a little bit about the hurricanes and energy related to that. Was that what you were going to sort of speak on there? I feel like that was something that you were bringing up.
Yeah, I've just seen.
It's just like everyone's on the phone.
Right. Yeah, just as we were talking about the events of a hurricane happening being like a perfect thing in the grand scheme of the universe, and as everything is, I was just going to add that I've seen a lot of people who are very smart people talking about that both these hurricanes, like Vermont and Harvey, I think, are it's like 1 in 1,000-year hurricane, and they're like very unlikely, and the possibility of them being man-made and specifically manipulated is like very possible. And I was just thinking about that in relation to being like a perfect event for people who move or whatever, but also the fact that they're like manipulating reality or the possibility of moving and it's very much possible.
Saw a HARP article actually earlier today about that exact thing.
Right, and it's still perfect in that way, but it's like we're manipulating reality. It's very interesting.
Yesterday, I was listening to the latest podcast by Sam Harris, and he had this gentleman on with about climate change. And you know, there's been a lot of work on climate change, and if you've seen some of the graphs from some of the ice cores and things like that, you'll notice that there are fluctuations that happen on consistent basis. There's constant ups and constant downs, and it's just a pure sine wave throughout history. And we're on an upward trajectory if we were to follow the same path of those ups and downs throughout the historical context. Now, it's being used as now there's no question that humans do need to get a grip on the vast amount of ridiculousness that's happening on this planet. There's no question about that. We have to stop at the fossil fuels and so many of the other things that we're doing. However, we are on an upward trajectory for global warming, globally warming the entire planet. Now, if we want to start, but the thing is that the people that are in charge, the people that are in the seats of all these places, they all stick to the same storyboard, and that it's just human based. They're never talking about the stats about the fact that this is a sine wave and that we are in the middle of a warming cycle. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to be said about, as you're alluding to, Drea and Harp, Aaron. You know, these are things that are clearly weaponized, but you know. Agenda, you know, there's all sorts of types of agendas that are on the market, but how do we really, because these are such deep rabbit holes and they're always conjecture, because there's really not much in the way of proof that people like you and I have the ability to really bring to the table. It's always, you know, nipped and tucked in all these different types of conspiracy theories. Wrong. We're all on the same page where we know it's not really a conspiracy, but you know, this is something that needs to be addressed. But until globally we have the capacity to come together and cohesively start to create a one world of people plus everything else that's here, it's not just a human-centric reality. We live as a polyculture. I brought that up last time. We have to remember again that we are polycultural creatures, and we have to respect that. Whoever's at the helm of these buttons that are being pressed to create these ridiculous end results, hurricanes included, we need to understand why they're doing this.
Well,
And also at the same time, we have to get to a place where we can start to resonate enough that that is overcome. We can help them to overcome their challenges. This could be something off planet. I mean, if you go into Gaia and you start watching some of the stuff with, you know, Corey Good, I mean, it just starts to get totally mind blowing. And it's really difficult to sort of wrap our minds around not just an Earth-based polyculture, but also a galactic polyculture, and that we're also being controlled or manipulated and sort of petri dished based on all of those parameters. So it becomes a very difficult conversation once we start to allow ourselves to accommodate all of these variables. So, you know, it's not so easy to just say, you know, it's global warming and it's caused by humans and all this other stuff. Certainly there is a large swath of our reality that is human-based that is not so good. There's no question about that. And we do need to get a grip on that. But there's also a larger contextual conversation that's also required in order for us to really get an understanding of where we sit in the middle of this galactic expression of reality.
So Ed, do you think that the hurricane was caused by HARP?
I can't comment. I
I
don't know.
think the kind of the bigger picture and what Eddie was also describing is that there are so many factors and ingredients to what is happening that we can't really pin down, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Because again, like if it is a, you know, conspiracy, and if the whole thing was orchestrated by one guy at a big desk and had a button that said hurricane, press the button or whatever, like that information is not going to get publicized. And so even if that was the case, it's just conjecture on our part. And so, and like, even like, as Eddie was saying too, again, like, it's not just like, you know, the information about HARP, but there's also like kind of off-planet, more ET or something beyond our, even like what we even know about in our sphere. Like this could be something taking place on levels beyond our comprehension. And so I think the takeaway is really that we have to be aware that, like, regardless of all of these ingredients, it is happening. If you live in Florida, get out, you know, be aware of that and make a change with the environment, like Aaron was saying. And I mean, yeah, like if you enjoy speculation and you enjoy investigation and everything, like, do so. But again, be aware that, like, this is a rabbit hole, and a very big one. And then you have to really decide, is this the rabbit hole that you want to go down? Because as much as that could be a valuable, you know, source of or way to spend your time, you could also spend the exact same amount of time learning to practice meditations, reading ancient Hermetic writings, learning Kabbalah, learning, you know, following Mahadriya. There's an infinite number of paths. And then you really have to make a choice and say, is this worth my time? Is that, you know, or what kind of conclusion am I going to come to in my mind? To be complete on it, because I think, I mean, yeah, like just looking in my experience and my looking at it, I think it's just like, kind of, again, as Eddie was saying, it's like the planet itself is warming up, mankind is assisting it, there's stuff going on under the table, and there's stuff going on over our heads. Cool, there's a hurricane. Let's try and be safe, and let's try and make changes where we need to. Let's evolve together. Let's be aware of the changes on the planet.
I think you really touched on the most important key point there, Jordan, is that we have to start to focus our time on the things that are going to be most productive for our own individual as well as collective evolutions. We have to start with ourselves. If we allow ourselves to focus on all these negative trajectories that are happening outside of us, then we're going to consistently and persistently be pulled out of our central pivot of beauty, grace, providence, whatever you want to recognize. And we have to stay central in our own capacities, without which we may as well get blown away by a hurricane, because we're not really all that useful to ourselves or anyone else if we can't stay centered in our own being.
Eddie, you just brought up a great synchronicity to earlier in the conversation. We're talking about how all of these things, if we focus on these external trajectories of negativity, and that routes right back to when Nicholas was asking about I can't remember his name, Dynamite Jack, maybe, gentleman who does external displays of meditation power. I think the word for that is cities or CDs. And it reminds me of that quote, these are just the foothills, keep going. If we get trapped up in that idea of all these things outside of us, we're forgetting that this is all an illusion that we are projecting the color and form onto from within, right?
Yeah.
I like that.
Definitely. It's one thing I guess certain to say is that if we as a species had put more effort into cultivating mindfulness rather than cultivating money, this hurricane would have either been avoided or not happened, or just wouldn't even be a thing. Like, what's a hurricane? So I guess that ties in with let's proceed forwards with stuff to serve ourselves as well as others.
I have a question. Can you mathematically and scientifically define what beauty is?
Say that again.
Can you mathematically?
Why would you want to? Why would you want to?
Because I'm just curious if you could. Yeah.
Was that mathematically and scientifically define what
beauty is?
Beauty.
I think beauty is more of an experience.
And
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Beauty is the soul. Beauty
Yeah, it's relative.
Yeah.
is the resonance of the soul.
So the only way to see beauty is to exist and be conscious?
You can say that awe exists, the feeling of awe. That's recorded as a in the synapses of the brain as a
even without
mechanism.
the body, even without the brain and body, isn't like the seed of life or the Metatron's cube just beauty itself? But even without the comprehension of human thought?
It's efficient. Beauty is an emotional connection, isn't it?
It's interesting that I'm sorry to keep going back there, but in the Kabbalah, the central sphere, the heart itself, is translated, like Tibetat is translated to beauty. And it is specifically that way because it is the central point of all forces uniting together as one, and the awareness that all things are inherently beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's not so much of like being like, well, beauty is by ratio or whatever, but beauty is, and you can like it's outside of your control, your individual human control. Beauty is regardless of whether you choose to observe it or not, and it's really then your experience of opening up to see and experience the beauty. And I mean, yes, you can very easily put if you wanted to put a mathematical formula on beauty, you could put any number of sacred geometries, all of them, because they are all the blueprint, the geometry of the makeup of reality, and those are the things that are the most beautiful. And I'm just speaking to like if you should just appreciate the natural everything that has come into being. Flower is beautiful, and
you can relate that to music. Frequencies, the exact frequencies of those geometries translate into harmonious music, and that's what we base all of our musical notes and scales on. I mean, they're tuned slightly differently, but there is a model frequencies, solfeggio frequencies, that are noted as being harmonious and beautiful. I mean, you visited the guy who made harmonics. Was it harmonics healing, or the big like accordion type thing that the guy rolled around, and he had a bow on it in the Spirit Quest.
That's a friend of mine.
And that was beautiful, wasn't it?
So when things are built in accord, like when human things are built in accordance with those natural things, more people generally find them beautiful, like a pagoda in Japan. Like those are all built to the phi ratio, for example. But like again, that's only one side of the equation. It can be built to the phi ratio, and nobody will be like, "That's beautiful," because you have to feel it.
Yeah, not robotic, just building it like out of a manual. You know, it's going to be like, oh, that's great, but where's the soul, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reminded of one of the insights from the original Celestine prophecy, just the attention that we put towards the concept of beauty in general helps elevate your vibration. By the attention on beauty, the things that we focus on, it doesn't really matter specifically what it is. I like to use crystals personally because I specifically like them, but I do macro photography too. And so one of my things is I will look at the smallest speck on this crystal, right? Like the tiniest point, and I can find the infinite beauty that exists there to the point where it can like entertain my entire consciousness for hours on end. And that right there is the crux of absolutely every molecule in existence has that potential, that like form of that template of pure beauty. It just depends on whether or not you're open to seeing it that way. And as soon as you stop trying to like put beauty in a box and saying this is what beauty is, and experiencing just as the sensation of whatever it is I'm looking at can be perceived as beautiful, however it is that I wish to like shift my perspective to see it. And by practicing that regularly, you'll start to realize that more and more things are beautiful. That will just like never stop. And you'll get to that point where literally every molecule around you is heavenly. And like that in and of itself is a practice. And I highly recommend just like starting with what is beautiful and like appreciating it and practicing it, attention towards it.
Here's another question. Is this universe the most beautiful thing that can possibly exist?
So adding to your point there, Aaron, what I find interesting, and this will tie into what you're talking about too, Nicholas, in a book called Biff, I think it was Jesus's childhood friend or something. It's a fiction novel. It's amazing. One of the things that occurs there is that one of the parables that is used is that Jesus is walking down the road with his ilk, and they see like a dead donkey and it's like rotting on the side of the road. And they're all like, oh my God, that's disgusting. Look at that. It's gross. It reeks and everything. And Jesus goes, man, look at how white that teeth is. What an amazing set of teeth. The point here is that the recognition of beauty everywhere is so important because we put ourselves into that place of consciousness. It doesn't matter what it is. It matters that it is and that we recognize beauty in all of it. You know, the smell of rot may be from our perspective something that's not so great, but guess what? You walk a grizzly bear beside that, and he's like, that is lunch. You know, that's so we need to recognize that contextually, all things are beautiful. If you're not framing life as a beautiful thing, that's on you. That's not on the thing. It's all about being able to reference beauty and moving even beyond. So Celestine prophecy is an absolutely great way to start to reference. I think I read that like 15 years ago or something, because it was just so good. And then going through the subsequent books was actually really, really good too. I think the last one was probably one of the better ones.
The 12th, my favorite.
Right? Because it references the fact that we have to get out of this polarity thinking. We have to start to get to that central place where we're literally centered in our capacity to hold all of the pre-constructed principles that were laid out in all of the other books, you know? So these are so important. We have to resonate beauty. We have to recognize it everywhere it is. 2 hurricanes, the biggest ever, those things are friggin' awesome. Look at the beauty that those things can create. Look at the chaos that's going on, sure, but look at the beauty that it creates. It creates togetherness. Look at all these people that are coming together in the US right now, coming together as one heart, helping each other to try to get beyond all of the chaos that's going on right now. There are so many people that are coming to their heart in the middle of all this through chaos. It's unfortunate that some people have to get kicked in the head to wake up, but sometimes that's just the way it is. I like the gentle approach myself, but I've been kicked in the ass too, plenty of times. Self-perpetuated as also coming from the outside. So it's a matter, you know, the carrot or the stick. Well, what if we don't want either? What if we just simply want to exist and do our thing and live a life full of the beautiful things that we can recognize everywhere. You want to attract good things in your life? Look at everything as if it's a miracle.
Yeah.
And also, you can add to that that final piece there is that, you know, if you're looking for beauty, how do you know what beauty is? You have to know what pain is to know what beauty is, or you have to have some kind of concept of good for bad and bad for good.
Nicholas, to answer one of your questions where you said if this was the most beautiful world, you know, if you've had dreams, some dreams are incredible, or experiences are where the beauty is like over the top, and you're like, wow, like I can't believe my mind is projecting this. But also not just that, even the lower realms as well. Even like visiting the lower realms, sometimes I'm like, wow, this is actually really beautiful. Like, how did my mind like project this so perfectly? Like that little detail in the corner, like what? Like, it's so, both of them are really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
Cool.
Yeah, the question of is this the most beautiful universe is kind of a very big existential question that you're asking there, especially when you consider like how could you possibly experience that to know? Like, how could any of us here really be like definitively yes or definitively no? You know, so it's really more of a question.
I think you already
reading out things from a website or something, just reading out fundamental questions of life from fundamentalquestionsoflife.com.
Right, exactly. I think you've already answered the question though, Jordan, through speaking to your last couple of videos and the higher spheres that you've already represented. So you've already outlined the frameworks of any universe. So that's the case. We already know that beauty is inherent within that structure. So it's not even about duality. And not to nitpick on you, Anthony, but we don't necessarily have to be dualistic in our framework. We don't have to have an evil thing to represent and recognize beauty, because as Jordan's already mentioned, that upper sphere, that heart in the tree of life is beauty itself, before it even differentiates into these physical platforms of duality of mind and of physicality. So beauty is already a prerequisite inertia within all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to really say like something is good or bad. I just mean that's like the polarity that we're talking about. But for example, if you put yourself in the most beautiful place that you can imagine and surround yourself with that, and you relish in it for weeks and months and years, whatever, it becomes mundane. It becomes the bad to the good that you now seek. Which that's kind of the point I was trying to get across.
I respect that. And again, I
think you guys are talking about different
careful.
things.
Yeah, I think so, because well, not entirely. We're on the same trajectory. I just want to make sure that there's a differentiation there of recognizing that beauty exists based on the eye of the beholder. It can be mundane, like you're saying. Of course, it can translate to mundanity. However, if we take the approach that I just was sort of alluding to, recognize beauty in the dirt under your fingernail. And you can be in a palatial abode for the rest of your life, loving ants and anthills. So it's all about being able to recognize beauty everywhere as a prerequisite sphere within all of reality itself. Precondition,
preeminent.
Preeminent. Exactly.
Well, my idea is, why wouldn't reality it's already beautiful, but why, when it creates itself, why wouldn't it stop until it creates itself as the absolute most beautiful thing? Because it already is beautiful. And like if you study E8 theory, like there's like the E8 Lie group has like smaller sets, and the E8 Lie group is the maximum, most exceptional Lie group. So it's the most complex, simple Lie group. And lots of people say it's the most beautiful mathematical structure. And it's actually what is behind all the particles of the universe. And it's the most like
the emergence theory group are doing as well.
What?
Like the 8th dimensional object based on tetrahedrons. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's a 248 dimensional object based on.
So it's comprised of tetrahedrons, no?
No, it's not a tetrahedron. It's circles twisting around each other.
I think what you're talking about is the same thing that I've been looking at.
I think Spirit Science did a video
down.
on this before, on the math of God.
Yeah, we talked about it in episode 8, dimensions. No, 7. 7 was dimensions. But I think the answer to your question, though, Nicholas, is that it is. Like you're saying, why wouldn't it? If I heard it right, why wouldn't the universe continue creating? It's already beautiful, but wouldn't it continue to create more and more beautiful?
Yeah, exactly.
Reality, right? And it is through you.
So that would be my answer too.
Yeah, like this is it in action. Even like, I mean, and again, as Eddie was saying too, like in everything, whether it's the raw magnificence of the hurricanes, or the heat, or the water, or the this conversation, or any video, any show, any human creation or natural creation of every kind, is the perpetual evolution of the universe, of creation in action.
I also think that real beauty, when you're really looking at the concepts outside of yourself, you have to understand that you're projecting everything outside of yourself from within yourself. And so understanding that real beauty is actually in you, in every single one of us, is really where you find the most profound statement of beauty. It's not out there, it's in here. And it's in every person.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey.
Nice.
So just by like seeing things, like if you just see like a mountain or like a scenery and you're seeing it, it's just super beautiful. But
yes, but where are you really seeing it? Is it outside of yourself, or is it the projection of the image that exists onto your eyes and then translated into your mind?
That's a good question, but I think it's more important that the fact that nothing is no beauty. Well, like sensing and seeing and sight of a human being is maximum beauty. So those two are opposite.
Not necessarily.
The concept of what you're viewing is made through your internal thoughts and memories and concepts of what you're looking at. You don't know what a mountain or a table is just off the bat from when you're born. You have to be taught those concepts, and then you create them in your mind. And someone's concept of a table might be different from yours.
I don't know. Sorry.
Just saying again to what Michelle was saying, that you can't say that the beauty is there outside of you somewhere, when really it's from your own internalization.
Yeah.
It's quite literally something you create with inside of you before you project it onto the outside.
Yeah. You might think about it this way. Think of a box that has 5 openings. But those openings are not perfectly open to the outside world. They have filters on them, right? Those 5 openings to be seen as your 5 senses. And everything inside of the box is your experience of reality. Now, energy comes into that box in all manner of forms, which you interpret through touch, taste, smell, sight. These 5 senses like come into your box. They go through this, like the different, like the translation of like your retinas, taking that energy, that information from the outside, translating it into a picture, and giving you an experience in your mind. And then that then is like then projected out through your experience then, like, because you have all this information and you act on it and you live your life and you do things or what have you. And like this is like the active creation of of what you call reality.
Yeah.
But yet all of that information that's coming to you, you're right, there's so much information, like in a white wall. I'm just like looking over here, right? This like plain white wall. It seems like there's nothing going on, but there is so much information in the paint, in the beams and the boards and the metal and the wiring, that like I can't even comprehend it all. I can't even absorb all of the information that is because of the way that reality is structured, I'm able to interact and engage with this wall as like a relatively simple thing where I can comprehend it in a simple way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so much more beyond that, that really, like, you have to actually establish a new sense inside of your box, because there is no pre-made opening in the box for the spiritual sense, for the higher mind. That is an internal receiver that you have to equip or install inside of yourself, which comes when you become satisfied with the five senses as a thing. Like when you realize that the five senses are still but a fraction of what's available in the experience of life, you really have to go inside in order to go, how can I receive information from beyond these five senses? And then that's where the building of this internal receiver is. And you could say it happens in the heart, it happens in the pineal gland, it happens through your whole body of consciousness, but essentially it opens you up to receiving things in a more invisible sense. Because right now, like, all of the reception of the five senses can be very attributed physically. Even things like sound, we can actively measure that. But after a certain point, we don't have instruments to measure the archetypes of creation, if we go with that road, or these sort of more causal, invisible forces of the spirit that move through all things. We still don't know how to measure that. And that's beautiful, because the measuring really, the experience of it really happens from inside.
And I think, to bring it a bit full circle, meditation helps you dissolve those filters and that box to the extent that you can.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Nice.
Full circle.
It's like color, kind of like how it's internal. Like, without humans actually seeing like color, for example, or trees that are green, without us seeing colors, the universe would have no way to see color, right? Is that true?
Maybe.
I guess color wouldn't exist, or wouldn't be a concept.
I think that it simply would be. The energy would be. But then, if like a dog was to exist, if humans didn't exist, but a dog was to exist, and they saw the color, they know dogs are partially colorblind, but let's say they could see this particular color. I mean, they would experience it, but they would just be one with it. It wouldn't, because they don't have the cognitive capacity to put language on it and say, that's blue. It's just like, oh, there's some berries. Yeah. So
they'd still exist as frequency bands, wouldn't they? Like, we have this whole thing of, the color band is such a small electromagnetic wave band on the electromagnetic scale.
Visible light.
Visible light. Sorry, yeah. But those octaves of frequency still exist, where you have, a segment divided into 7. Same like on music, you have an octave that shifts up, but that sound you're playing down there doesn't sound the same as that sound up there. So you can see the color, and you can go as low as you can't even hear the sound. You can go high, you can't even hear the sound yet a dog could. So in that way, just like how you said with the berries, they wouldn't know the color, but they could hear the sound. So there's different levels to it, and visible color, I guess, color can still exist, just not in the way of visible light.
That's true.
In that sense.
Guys, I'm going to get off. I will talk to you all next time.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Michelle. Very nice to meet you,
Michelle.
Nice to meet you.
So,
Take care.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
I just want to say quickly, I noticed, Eddie, you unmuted just a moment ago, but you didn't get to say anything. Did you have anything to add to that concept?
I think you guys cleared it up just fine. Let's just leave it at that. I think these are the perennial questions and perennial answers that are constantly flowing through everyone. So my biggest point of gratitude in all of this is that this is even happening, that we can actually do this, that we have the capacity to go through this process live time like this with such great people and great ideas and just hash out all these things in real time. There's nothing like this in history, unless you're part of maybe a secret society or something, like it was just, like, and even then, all your brotherhoods were all over the place, right? So you couldn't really, you'd have to wait till that twice a year where you all get together. And then, even still, it's a guy over there might be saying something profound, but you're way over here on this end of the table or something, right? Well, we're all in the same room. So it's just really nice to be able to have this collective, collaborative approach, because it's like the momentum that's happening from this is uncanny. And, I had a vision yesterday that it's happening. Our evolution is happening in a way, and we're protected, and we have all the tools that we'll ever need, and we're being guided by so many higher forces right now, of which I really can't explain without visual. So just know that, just rest in that peace. Be who you really are, and continue being who you really are every moment of every single day, and develop that, even maybe an understanding. Like, I mean, I could just imagine Nicholas right now. You're going to say, well, what are we right now? You know what I mean? Like, let's figure, I mean, and I mean that with respect, because it's important to be able to differentiate what's going on in our world. But just be yourself, be emotionally stabilized in whatever way you can do that. Be mentally sharp in whatever way that looks to you as you continually navigate this trajectory that, and again, remember why we're all here. Jordan and Aaron, you know, are creating these amazing, Andrea, thank you. I don't mean to, you know, you know, are creating all of these fascinating mediums through which we can do this, through video, through conversation, through just pure unadulterated devotion. That is so important. I've got a book coming out in about a month, but that takes a long time to do. You guys are doing this real time. Every week you guys have something of some importance to share with the world, at least to some degree. And that's powerful. You know, that's and beautiful and powerful thing. So that's where I just wanted to add my gratitude, if anything.
Cool.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I mean, that actually brought a really good thought to me, and I really wanted to share. It was from The Way of the Heart, and it just conveyed this concept that the answer already exists, and it existed long before any one of our perceived problems ever did. So it's sort of like Tippereth and Kether existed long before this physical Malkuth ever did. So it's like we're down here perceiving these problems and these things that are going on, but that divine answer existed eternally before any of these questions ever came into our mind. So whenever you have a question that comes up, or whenever you have a problem or anything like that comes into your consciousness, know 100% that the answer already exists. We'll give like a small example of like the climate change, or like the paradigm that we have right now of, we'll say, lots of pollution. Well, you could take the example of electric cars already existed, and different forms of infrastructure already existed. Like, all of the answers are already there before pollution was ever even close to a concept that we had in our mind. So whenever we're even like looking at our human ascension, it's like, yeah, we I believe came from that higher connected unity and dropped ourselves down here so we could experience, I want to say, like tangibility on a different level. But that connection to get back up was always and is always still there. So it's not like you have to search for something new per se. It's more of like a remembering that the answer is already there, or sort of like a rediscovery per se. But yeah, like, I fully resonate with what you were saying there, of like, our guides are helping us and we are moving forward, and actually quite quickly at this rate. But just grounding home that like the answers that we're looking for existed long before we could even perceive them as being a question.
Yeah, good point. I want to say thanks to Nicholas actually as well for just spitting out 100 questions per second, and you know, I think that's been a really good driving force for conversation actually. So maybe have some more of that next time.
I have a journal that is full of questions, so I just got it from there.
Cool.
Nice.
I would agree. Thank you all very much. You gave me a great idea a moment ago with that conversation when you started talking about visible light and the eyes and how we project things, and how we have, you just done that video on the 3 pillars, and you did a visual of the energy passing down from the top on the right and left and going up the center. And it gave me this flash of insight to, we have the 2 eyes on the outside that energy travels into, but we have this other eye on the inside that we project out from. And so it gave me this idea that that projection outward is occurring dynamically the same time we're pulling energy in. And it is that triangle that creates our visual awareness.
Oh, great thought.
I like.
Yeah, thanks for that,
But
Jeff.
yeah, do we want to do like another sort of like meditation group outro, close the energy? How are we feeling?
Sure.
That sounds excellent. Does anybody want to lead that?
I can jump in and do the one I was going to do last time if you'd like.
That would
Sure.
be delightful.
Okay, sure. So you can close your eyes. You don't have to. Just make yourself comfortable, relax. Everybody's sitting. You know, I usually say lie on the floor, but any way you want to be is fine. And draw attention to the breath, of course. Take a moment to take yourself to your own space. Initiate any process you usually initiate to get in a meditative state. And draw attention to the toes. You can start to wiggle them. Just bring your bodily awareness to the ends of your toes. And let them settle. And then focus on the relaxation. When you stop moving them, they rest in neutral space. And feel that relaxation start to spread and meander and start to rise up to the feet, through the soles, bridge, washing up to your ankles. And each step we take, go back to the previous space in your mind and reiterate that relaxation. Once you've fully relaxed your feet, you can start to rise up the calves, the shins, remembering these different areas of your body. And like a wave, relaxation sweeping up, washing back and forth. Move over the knees, remembering the breath. Synchronizing it with the mental picture you have of relaxation, washing up from your feet, legs, knees, and as we reach the thighs, allow this energy to converge into your root, space between your legs at the lower center of your abdomen. And recapping, breathing, allowing it to expand in the abdomen. And really start to settle in as this relaxation is sweeping up through the torso, washing around the midsection. And feel it, let it express itself in new ways. See how it rests in each center as we proceed up through the heart. We'll take a few moments to complete this cycle of relaxation in the torso and finish at the base of the neck. Recap. Let go back from the toes. Just let the relaxation sink in a little deeper as you wash up back to the neck. Then slowly, in your own time, move the awareness to the fingers. And the same as the toes, you can wiggle them and get out that restlessness and let them sink deeper, joining the rest of your body in relaxation. Moving through the palms, over the knuckles, Wiggle the wrists as well if you like. And the same as the legs. Wash up through the forearms, the elbows. Gradually reaching the space at the base of the neck to unify with our first progression. We'll take a few breaths here to just let that sink in across the whole body. And as we move up through the neck, I'd like you to imagine that feeling when you sometimes get a prickly sensation on the back of your neck rising up to the crown. And let this relaxation reverberate and echo through your mind, resting behind the eyes and allowing that relaxation to set in behind your eye sockets, further into your mind, penetrating and leaving all those excess layers of worry or anything that's got you nervous and upset throughout the day, just letting them fade away for the new blossom to come forward. And lastly, we'll begin to gather in the point of the crown, all this energy and abundance you've created. As we breathe in, we gather, and as we breathe out, we let it cascade all around us, enveloping the body, sinking right down to the feet, and back up with the inhalation to the crown. Exhale and let that beauty pour out, swirl and dance around, be free to express itself. In, gathering, out, flourishing. In and out. Namaste.
Wow, thank you.
I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of ASMR or not, but that just sent tingles through my whole body, which was awesome. Thanks for that.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, ASMR, it's autonomic sensory motor response. It's a neurological thing that it feels like bliss going through the body. It's like inner bliss. It's a beautiful feeling. So,
great.
Thanks for that, Anthony.
Very
Appreciate
welcome.
it, sir.
You did it to yourself.
Well, I've been practicing allowing that channel to open. So anything that's gentle does that to me. If I notice somebody doing something really kind or really caring, it brings that tingle to the back, right down my spine, and it's just a really beautiful thing. I'm very sensitive to the subtleties of love, however they manifest, and the intention behind what you just did was relaxation, which is a subtlety of love. So I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Great. Well, you're very welcome. Anytime.
Do you want to tie us to the universe, Jordan?
Bringing us back away from sleeping.
I was just going to say thank you all so much for coming and being on this chat. This is great. I'm really enjoying doing these calls and everybody here, and also everybody in the comments for those who are writing them.
Yeah, everyone in the chat was so amazing. Every time it just gets more and more positive and fun. And it was like especially amazing. So I love all of you.
So thank you. You are so beautiful, and I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to share and connect with all of you beautiful souls. So thank you. Yeah, that's kind of it for this call. Unless there's any final thoughts that anyone wants to share or add.
I'll just add that if you guys want to do that meditation again, I've actually made a video with it, which I've just posted in the group chat. So you're welcome to follow it again if you'd like.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, spirit science really changed my life. Like, with all the truth in it. Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Jordan. Thank you, Jordan. And also all the spirit science crew, Rhea and Aaron. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really enjoyed today's call. Thanks, guys. Everybody here, big thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Love you all. Take care.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Peace.
Thank you.